Good evening and welcome to the November 26, 2024 meeting of the Abington Board of School Directors. I note the attendance of all board members with the exception of Dr. Mowry and Mr. Allen, who are excused. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you very much. The Abington Board of School Directors has convened this evening's meeting at the Administration Building, and the public is welcome. This meeting is also being broadcast live on the Abington School District YouTube channel. This meeting is being recorded and will be accessible on the district's website and cable channel no later than Friday, November 29, 2024, to allow those members of the public who cannot participate to view the proceeding at a later time. Comments from citizens will be conducted in person and by phone. Information regarding participating remotely in public comment will be displayed on the screen at the time of public comment, and the board thanks the public in advance for its cooperation. This is a place where we hold both respect and dignity in high regard. Both your presence and your voice are welcome in this space. Do we have any additional agenda items for this evening, Dr. Fetcher?
No.
Any business to be appropriately brought up by my fellow board members? Okay, then we'll start with opening comments from my fellow board members. Ms. Frazier,
Oh, welcome everyone.
Ms. Eisenhart,
Welcome.
Ms. Spalding,
Nothing at this time.
Mr. Muhammad,
Good evening.
Ms. Fazy,
Welcome, everyone.
Ms. Hartman,
Good evening.
Dr. Fetcher, any opening remarks?
No, just welcome everyone to the meeting.
Thank you. We will move forward with our evening's orientation.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Brown. At this time, I would like to ask Ms. Janine Sack, Supervisor of Literacy, to share an update on literacy initiatives for the 2024-2025 school year for grades 6 through 10. At the end of last year, we proposed some changes, and this is part of the implementation, and we wanted to just give an update. We'll give a further update in mid-year that will include more data as we continually assess the best way to improve in the realm of literacy.
Good evening, Dr. Fetcher, Ms. Brown, and the Board of School Directors. My name is Janine Sack, and I'm the Supervisor of Literacy for the Abington School District. Tonight, I will be sharing an update on the literacy initiatives for the 24-25 school year for grades 6 through 10, focusing on both universal Tier 1 instruction and targeted interventions for students needing additional support. To date, we've organized our literacy initiatives into two areas. First, we have Universal Tier 1 instruction, which applies to all students. Our efforts here include 4 approaches to improve literacy achievement: Lexile screening and instruction for grades 6 to 10, explicit vocabulary instruction for grades 6 to 8 across the content areas, additional reading instructional minutes for grade 6 implemented through the Pathways to Success classes, and our WIN, or our What I Need program, for grades 6 to 8 implemented in the English Language Arts classes. Second, for students requiring more intensive support, we've implemented targeted Tier 2 and 3 interventions through reading courses. Abington Middle School uses a multi-tier system of support, or MTSS model, and our literacy instruction falls under different tiers. Tier 1 is the high-quality general instruction that all students receive across the curriculum. This includes differentiation and support to meet diverse learning needs. Tier 2 and 3 interventions provide targeted support for students who are identified as needing extra assistance, with Tier 3 being more intensive. Let's start with our first approach, the Lexile Screening and Instruction Initiative. With this initiative, we first gathered data through the STAR Reading Lexile Screening Assessment to understand students' reading levels and skill development. This baseline data was collected in September. Lexile Screening from STAR Reading is a computer adaptive assessment that measures students' reading abilities across various literacy skills. It provides educators with detailed insights into a student's reading performance, growth, and proficiency. The assessment covers several key areas: reading comprehension, vocabulary knowledge, sentence level understanding, and reading speed and fluency. Following the collection of data, a series of professional development and data review meetings were scheduled. During the professional development and data review meetings, we analyzed trends in the data to identify areas of need and allocate resources. This required us to identify sections with the highest degree of need and identify and assign available supports across the multi-tier system of support, or MTSS continuum. For example, supports may include English language development, special education, or reading supports. We scheduled collaboration meetings for English language arts teachers and reading specialists to review beginning of year data. Finally, teachers were supported and encouraged to use this data to adjust instruction and target student growth in reading. This would mean our efforts would include preparing core and WIN instruction that meets student needs and differentiating instruction for their classes. Our efforts with Lexile screening and instruction continue on this slide. Information from the STAR Reading Lexile screening allows teachers to see current and projected mastery of skills for literature and informational text. The results from this assessment were also integrated into IXL, a platform for personalized reading support for all students. In addition, literacy support recommendations and resources were communicated to all content area teachers to offer suggestions for instruction and practice for students. This is meant to ensure consistent reading development across all subjects. Continuing conversations about targeting student growth occurs at many levels: department meetings, professional learning communities, grade level meetings, and team meetings. Administrators and teachers work together to discuss student progress, Tier 1 supports, and appropriate differentiation and strategies. Our second universal Tier 1 instruction is an explicit vocabulary instruction. For grades 6 to 8, we are focusing on this model. The instruction here emphasizes the academic vocabulary instruction, which is critical for student success across subjects. Knowing the value of repetition and the ways in which students learn most effectively, spaced repetition across subject areas is imperative to the success of vocabulary development. A priority focus on how words are used in a particular context or discipline is part of the language development process and a focus of this instruction. This model uses a specific weekly structure where new vocabulary terms are introduced on Mondays during English language arts and then reinforced through the week by teachers in all content areas. It is intended to assist students in constructing meaning and understand language when reading complex text or engaging in class discussions. As we work on the implementation of this initiative, we continue to provide professional development to further prepare lessons and vocabulary-infused integration. Professional development sessions were implemented in September and November of 2024 to support this work. Our third universal Tier 1 instruction was the increase in reading instructional time for grade 6. For our 6th graders, we have allocated in the 24-25 school year that a typical 6th grade student is now being taught an additional 6 mini units of instruction. This implementation is embedded in the Pathways to Success program and delivered by a reading specialist with the support of the Pathways teacher. Students are receiving instruction with these 6 mini units covering key literacy skills such as central idea, dialogue, mood and tone, point of view, text structure, and character. And specific genre exposure include informational text, drama, poetry, and narrative text. Reading specialists planned and prepared the 6 units with opportunities for scaffolded and tiered lessons with the intent to incorporate and integrate themes where appropriate and to include high leverage practices in the lesson and unit design. For adolescents, these high leverage practices are instructional methods that have a strong impact on student learning. These practices are especially important for supporting struggling readers and helping all students develop critical literacy skills. Some key high leverage practices implemented in these lessons include explicit instruction in reading strategies, teaching academic vocabulary, close reading of complex text, promoting text-based discussions, and differentiated instruction in building background knowledge. Our fourth targeted Tier 1 support is the WIN, or the What I Need program, in grades 6 to 8. Beginning and ongoing throughout the year, we start our WIN plan, or What I Need plan, with data. Benchmark results are analyzed to determine areas of strengths and weaknesses. Collaboration meetings with highly qualified educators are designed to examine recent assessment results and provide time for collaboration and essentially a game plan for instruction for identified sections of students. Reading specialists are collaborating with the English language arts teachers to offer the WIN, or the What I Need instruction during the English language arts block. WIN, or What I Need instruction, occurs every other day for 30 minutes. For grades 6 to 8, this provides our Tier 1 students with additional support on repeated practice in several key areas to support literacy skill development. The focus of that WIN, or What I Need instruction, is on these areas: key ideas and details, craft and structure, and integration of knowledge and ideas. In the winter of 2024, we will see how our students are progressing as we administer second round of benchmarks in January, and we will plan to provide professional development on measuring achievement and growth with these benchmarks. We will schedule collaboration meetings to review Lexile and benchmark data to adjust supports. Our final approach to support literacy achievement are targeted Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions for the reading courses in grades 6 to 10. These interventions are meant for students identified as needing more intensive support. With the support of the board, an additional reading specialist was hired to support this intervention. In the summer of 2024, the team worked to identify students for these courses, analyze trends in students' historical and current reading data, and develop a curriculum designed to meet their needs. Students enrolled were selected based on reading specialist recommendations and examination of historical assessment performance data, including benchmarks, unit tests, PSSA, and Acadience data. Professional development was provided for our building reading specialists to examine the curriculum frameworks and to explore reading interventions and assessment protocols. In the fall of 2024, the team created conditions conducive for learning routines, goal setting, and expectations in the reading courses. As part of that work, the team worked with a consultant to support the social and emotional needs of students and support goal setting, reflecting on personal engagement, and progress toward attainment of goals. We began implementation of the course, providing instruction with the focus on fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension using research-based programs and interventions. We implemented assessment protocols to measure progress and support adjustments to instruction. We examine and continue to examine progress monitoring data to determine student progress to date and identify additional students for enrollment. For students enrolled in the reading courses, the progress monitoring scores are obtained monthly, and so we currently have 3 progress monitoring dates, assessment data collected. In the winter of 2025, we plan to identify additional students for these courses, including in the analysis of trends in their historical and current reading data. We plan to provide continued professional development to our reading team and on reading interventions and assessment protocols. We plan on continuing our services with the consultant to support our students' needs and support their goal setting, their reflection on their personal engagement, and their progress toward attainment goals. In the spring of 2025, our plan is to identify enrollment for the 2025-2026 school year, and we plan to provide continued professional development to our reading team. And as a reminder, we are still early in our efforts. As Dr. Fetcher said, we plan on sharing with you a mid-year analysis and progress update with the reading courses and our Tier 1 instruction and supports. Thank you for your continued support and time this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Sack.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's too early or not because we haven't had testing yet, standardized testing. But my question is, how successful are these screening tools to bridge the gap between low achieving and high achieving students?
I can comment on some of the interventions that we're seeing already in the reading courses. Like I mentioned before, the progress monitoring has already been completed, and over 75% of the students are already improving from the beginning of year benchmark data of the students enrolled in the reading course. When we have our mid-year data for all students, we'll be able to give you more information about all students.
Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments?
You had mentioned that there's going to be a mid-year review specifically for tier 2 and 3 students. Is that correct?
It'll be for all students.
Oh, for all
we'll
students?
Have information about all students, yes.
Okay. And the added reading specialist was specifically for tier 2 and 3, though? Did I understand
To support,
that?
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Could you share what rollout looked like in terms of students being placed in these courses? And I know you said you start with goal setting, and so what's the framing around why they're there versus being in some other course that is?
Sure. So the conversations we had with students, and this was the support with the consultant, we wanted them to know that we weren't just looking at one measure. We weren't just looking at your last unit test in ELA. We wanted to see, had you received support previously in our elementary schools, and we wanted to see how you were progressing with our courses overall at the middle school. And using that information, we created a model to say, okay, these students are here. What's the projected mastery of where they were? We used the STAR data to kind of check us, and so here's where they are right now. That Lexile information gave us here's where they are now, and this is what they probably need. Then as we did the progress monitoring data, they confirmed our suspicions that some of these students need a little bit more than just a language arts program. They needed some fluency work. They needed some vocabulary instruction. And what we're noticing, because they're tracking their own progress monitoring data, charting themselves, it's meaning something for them to say, okay, here's where I am now. This is where I want to be. In addition, they're interested in moving forward. So we're trying to set goals and trying to get them to reflect on, am I fully engaged in what I'm doing? Am I listening to the prompts? Am I working on these fluency, phrasing, cueing, whatever it is that we're working on? We're getting positive response, especially from our high school students who are hearing, okay, this is where I am and this is what I want to get to in order to be successful in all courses, not just an English course or a social studies course or like our reading course.
Thank you.
Can you talk a little bit about what happened over the summer in terms of communication?
Yes.
And so, students just weren't placed in these courses. There was a lot of work that happened over the summer to make this happen.
Yes, so this was a team approach, and I don't know if Ms. Anama wants to help me with this. Yeah,
Can you hear me?
yes.
Ms. Sack and the team of reading specialists, like I'm very loud, worked to identify the students so that we could determine which students we felt had the greatest need. And then we worked actually with our counseling team. And so the counseling team came in over the summer because they have relationships with many of our families already. And so counselors actually helped us make phone calls. So we reached out to families. We talked to them about what we had identified and why we thought this class would be beneficial. But families did ultimately have the choice as to whether or not they would like their child to move forward with this class or would like them to take an elective. So if a student, said, no, I want to take German, I do not want to take the reading class, we did honor that decision, that family decision that they made. But the majority of the families did want the reading support and were, excited to have the opportunity to, really get this very, unique and individualized attention that they're getting that is helping them specifically target their needs. And as Ms. Sack said, I have to say, particularly at the high school, it has been very exciting to see how, the students have responded because the work that we've done with the consultant in particular has really helped the students see this as a positive opportunity. It's not a punishment. It's an amazing opportunity. We're giving kids to grow, to learn, to see where they need extra help, to get that help, and really to understand that this is not just helping them in ELA, but it's going to help them across the board in all of their classes and just be successful in life. So we really have had very positive conversations with families and with students so far, but most of the work did happen over the summer, identifying the students. We made those phone calls. We actually started calling the day after you all approved the courses, so that we could, inform families. They could have time to make that decision, and we would have time to schedule the students.
Can you speak a little bit to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. No.
Can you speak a little bit to the Lexile scores and how that has influenced other areas other than English language arts across the school?
Yes, so the Lexile information is available through our data platform, and we have provided professional development for our teachers to review that assessment data. We've also, like I mentioned a couple slides ago, we talked about what are the best practices for literacy supports in a content area. We provided guidance and recommendations for lesson planning. It is an area, this is the first time we've ever used Lexile scores in our planning and instruction here. So we are growing in that area. So we have a second professional development scheduled in January to then look at the benchmark data that's coming to compare the progress and then take some action steps from there. So we're growing in that area, but we're getting some great conversations. One of the things that we know that is an immediate effect, two things I could say. For example, the groups that the English language arts teachers are organizing in their classroom, they are doing so based on the Lexile measure. So they are grouping based on readability levels. We have our other, ancillary supports that provide Lexile suggestions and what we should do with different levels. So we use that information to support student needs, whether it's providing them with a reinforcement activity or providing them with a reteaching activity based on a particular skill.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to commend the team for the well-rounded approach to getting student and family buy-in and rolling out this initiative.
Thank you.
Very, very effectively.
Given the disparity among groups, is there any way that these interventions could be considered mandatory?
I don't know how to answer that question. I'm sorry.
Not when I'll let you
I
answer.
remember looking at the numbers for the standardized tests, like PSSA results,
Yes.
Keystone, et cetera. And so when you look at the various groups, in some instances, there were differences between a range of perhaps 20 to 30 points. And so I thought, given the difficulties or level of difficulties for some of these groups,
Yes.
could it be considered or an option for them to, not an option,
A
but a
requirement
requirement under the
enrollment.
circumstances to help bridge the gaps?
I mean, go ahead.
So I think one of the things that occurred with this, we had already placed students in courses. So in order to provide this different level of support, we wanted to be an opt-in. We could schedule students to different courses based on what is, ability or need for reinforcement. But this particular, putting this into place, if you recall, as we got scores and looked at different deficiencies, it was essential that we took action right away, and we put this into place when students were not expecting to be placed in the particular course. And so there was some explanation that had to go on, and we wanted the buy-in as well because of the timing of everything. If we see the advantage of this and look at our data in the future, we could schedule students into these courses, knowing that there's always options to opt out of various schedules as well. So we could place that in as, these are the courses that you must take, but sometimes people may opt out of that as well.
Thank you.
And
Yeah, I have one question. When you did the Lexile screening, that was all students grades 6 through 10?
Yes.
Okay. Did you find that we had, what did you find were the proficiency levels overall?
So we had, I can tell participation rates were about 94, 93% at the two buildings. And the beginning of year data was hovering around 58% at the middle school, beginning of year proficiency projected, and I think it was 59% at the senior high school. Beginning of year, again, we say that this is where they are now. Where would they be projected to be is something different. We'll have more information at the mid-year.
So is that based on grade level proficiency? So at the beginning of the year, 58% were proficient at their grade level?
Yes,
Or-
so yes, they, Star Reading Lexile actually gives us information of their projection based on the Pennsylvania state level test.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
any additional questions or comments?
Yeah, just one more, just a great initiative. Thank you so much for your work in incorporating ways to reach the kids in a different environment that, really addresses across the subjects and the curriculum. I think it's a great initiative, and I really look forward to seeing what the mid-year results look like and end of the year. So thank you for coming today and explaining it.
Thank you.
I do appreciate how Tier 1 strategies have expanded. Sometimes we put a lot into Tier 2 and Tier 3, but when greater than 20% of our students are showing drops, then our Tier 1 needs to change. So I applaud the district and the efforts for changing Tier 1. Can you clarify the win time, how often and how long per day?
So the reading specialists are assigned sections. They are assigned in blocks, so they may go to section 1 for 30 minutes, and they work with 2 different groups on Tuesday, and then on Thursday they'll work with 2 different groups on Thursday. So it's Tuesday, Thursday, every other day for 30-minute blocks at a time.
30 minutes, thank you. I think my second question may have been answered. It's about the progress monitoring. You said 70% of the students have shown improvement since September.
Yes.
And you'll have another update at the mid-year analysis. Any additional questions or comments from the board?
Will the update, I'm just curious, in the middle of the year, is that all students 6 through 10, or is that just the Tier 2, Tier 3 kids?
We will have an update for all students at the mid-year.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate the efforts, and we look forward to seeing the fruit of it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Dr. Fetcher, does that conclude our orientations for this evening?
Yes, Mrs. Brown.
Thank you so much. That takes us to agenda item number 3, which is comments from citizens. Comments from citizens are being conducted both in person and by phone. The phone number to participate in public comment is 267-715-3717 and is featured on the screen at this time. You may call in using your landline or mobile phone. If you're within the room, there are mics to the left and to the right of you. Please be sure to state your name and address.
Good evening. I hope you all have a great Thanksgiving coming up, and I hope everybody celebrates it. I'm sorry these ladies just left. I had a bunch of questions, and it's not even what I was preparing. So we're Abington School District. Don't we already know how to teach kids how to read? I mean, if you can't read, you can't master any other subjects that we have. And Abington School District existed when I was a kid, and the friends I had all knew how to read. So I'm a little confused about this. And then I thought, is this a direct result of the COVID shutdowns? So maybe somebody could bring that up. Maybe that's where the problem is. The second one is, are we advancing kids who can't read at grade level? If we're in middle school and we have problems with kids and we're trying to identify them, why haven't they already been identified in grades 1 through whatever it is, 5 or 6? the teachers already ought to tell it. Jimmy Brown or Joe Rooney or Tom Rooney or whatever has got this problem. And they shouldn't be advanced if they're not at grade level. You're condemning them to below average performance in math and history and whatever else it is if they're not understanding and able to read the books and do their own research. The second one is, don't we expect everybody to advance between September and now? I mean, saying, oh, tier 2 advanced between when they started and now, isn't that our goal every year? Is for all students to advance from whatever the baseline was on August 31st to wherever they are. I mean, measuring advancement is just saying we're sort of doing our job. And then the last one is, you said tier 2 and tier 3 interventions. I think they have a goal of getting to grade level. And again, this isn't even what I was talking about. This is fascinating. I never even heard of the supervisor of literacy. I thought that was usually what they called English teachers. Maybe I'm wrong. That ought to be just teachers. Everybody should be able to identify and said, hey, this kid can't read whatever the book is, or he doesn't understand it. We need to get in there and work. I don't know why we need specialists and we need to hire outside people to come in and whatever that, I didn't even know the word, that the evaluation, quintile or something like that. I don't know what it was. I'm sorry. What I wanted to get in and talk about before was to get back to our $500 million bond. And I need to ask you guys a couple of basic questions because everybody I talk to doesn't understand this thing. I'd like school directors to tell me the answers to this. What is the section in the law that governs why we're going to pass a resolution to make taxpayers vote on increasing their taxes beyond the rate? And basically what it is putting a mortgage on all their house. Is that a minute or am I done? I'm done?
Thank you so much
Okay.
for your time.
Hi,
Hello.
Jen Pertel. I live in Glenside.
Mhm.
I don't know if I have to give more than that. But
think that's
in the
fine.
spirit of Thanksgiving, I wanted to thank all of you on the board for all you do for this school district. I'd like to thank all the administrators for all you do. I had 3 kids go through Abington, and no school, no place, no people are perfect, but I appreciate all the time, the effort, the care that you all put into what you do, shepherding us through this unprecedented pandemic that especially one of my kids was there for 3 years of that. For what you do on the day-to-day, taking care of the school now, and then in the future with the plans for how to improve the district, how to improve our facilities, how to keep this school district excelling, because not only is that great for our kids and our township, but it's great for homeowners because it adds value to our homes. So thank you for all of that. And then I would also like to say that the teachers are, they're excellent, but they're also inspiring. My oldest is out of school. She went and got her grad school degree, and she's now a 7th grade history teacher, specifically because of one of her middle school history teachers. He inspired her to want to do that. So I just want to say thank you again for everything you guys do, and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you so much for your voice. Are there any other speakers within the room? Mr. Green, can you confirm that there are no callers on the line?
We do not have any callers on the line.
Thank you. Dr. Fetcher?
I just want to respond to the question about reading intervention. Reading intervention is a K through 12 initiative, and from the moment students enter into our district, we are looking at any deficiencies that students may come to the district with. I think that it is essential that we continue to look for interventions for students who are not meeting grade level, who are demonstrating a lack of performance, and do what we can to help our students from grade level to grade level to be able to be solid readers, because I do agree with the fact that reading is a priority and essential for whatever anyone does in the future. I think that to minimize the interventions to titles of people and reading specialists is to not understand the full picture. I believe strongly in what our teachers are doing in the classroom. I believe strongly in what our reading specialists who are specifically trained individuals to target students who have specific needs in reading. And this program that we spoke about this evening, looking at 6th through 10th grade, specifically came from looking at student scores and looking at what were some deficiencies that we have an obligation as educators to make sure that we address. So this priority is not new. Some of these initiatives and strategies may be new implementations, but they come from much research and are not just based on titles of individuals. These are, a reading specialist training is quite impressive. And I think that, I would be remiss if I didn't stop and say this evening how essential that is from kindergarten through 12th grade. Thank you.
Thank you. As a parent, an educator, and a math specialist, I appreciate and understand the importance of the role that all of our staff play in making sure that our students reach their highest potential and removing the any impediments that may be in the way. All right. That takes us to agenda item number 5. Ms. Spalding, can you please read the recommendation to approve the personnel addenda?
That the Board of School Directors approves the changes in personnel as reflected in personnel addendum numbers 5.1 and 5.1A and confidential addendum number 5.1B.
Second.
We have a second, Dr. Fetcher.
Thank you, Mrs. Brown. The personnel addenda begins with the request for leave of absence for one professional employee, assignment change for one professional employee, appointment of one professional staff member, and change of status for one professional staff member. The personnel addendum continues with compensation for IEP meetings, interpreter and translation services, and a Title I family engagement event.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Mrs. Flanagan?
Ms. Frazier?
Aye.
Ms. Eisenhart?
Aye.
Ms. Spalding?
Aye.
Mr. Mohammed?
Aye.
Ms. Fazy?
Aye.
Ms. Hartman?
Aye.
Mrs. Brown?
Aye. Ayes have it, and motion passes. Ms. Spalding, can you please read the recommendation for approval of the financial report?
That the Board of School Directors approves the financial report for the period ending October 31st, 2024, as reflected in addendum number 6.1.
Second.
We have a second, Dr. Fetcher.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. I'm going to ask that Mr. O'Neill please summarize the October 2024 financial report.
Thank you, Dr. Fetcher. Financial report, board meeting comments for the period October 31st, 2024. With regard to revenue, as of October 31st, we received $133.8 million, which is 71% of the $188.4 million revenue budget. As of October 2023, we had collected $125.1 million, which was 70.2% of budgeted revenue. Year to date, we are $8.7 million ahead of last year, which is due primarily to the Act 1 index real estate tax increase and earnings on investments. Regarding expenses, year to date, we expended $48.1 million of our $199.6 million budget, which equates to 24.1%. For the same period last year, $48.1 million was expended, which was 25.3% of the then $189.9 million budget. This concludes the October 2024 financial report comments.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Mrs. Flanagan?
Ms. Frazier,
Aye.
Ms. Eisenhart,
Aye.
Ms. Spalding,
Aye.
Mr. Mohammed,
Aye.
Ms. Fazy,
Aye.
Ms. Hartman,
Aye.
Mrs. Brown,
Aye, ayes have it, and motion passes. Ms. Spalding, can you please read the recommendation for approval of the payment of bills?
That the Board of School Directors approves the payment of bills for the period ending October 31st, 2024, as reflected in addendum number 7.1.
Second.
We have a second, Dr. Fetcher.
Thank you, Mrs. Brown. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding the payment of bills.
Questions or comments from the board? To date, can you share how much money we have expended for charter schools?
Yes, Mr. Lionetti?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Fetcher. Year to date, as of today, we've spent $1.37 million of tuition for charter school students. That's for 129 students enrolled in both cyber and brick and mortar charter schools. 84 of that 129 students are in general education, 45 are in special education.
Thank you. And a special education rate is one rate. It's not based on a specific need.
Correct. The current rate for the school year is $32,147 for special education students in both cyber and brick and mortar schools. General ed, $16,682. Again, for students enrolled in both cyber charter and regular charter schools.
Thank you so much for that update. Any additional questions or comments from the board?
Could you repeat the number for special education students? How much it was? You said 16,000 roughly for general. Could you repeat what it was for special
The
education?
tuition rate?
Yes,
Is
please.
$32,147, so roughly double.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any additional questions or comments from the board? Ms. Flanagan?
Ms. Frazier,
Aye.
Ms. Eisenhart,
Aye.
Ms. Spalding,
Aye.
Mr. Mohammed,
Aye.
Ms. Fazy,
Aye.
Mrs. Brown,
Aye. Ayes have it, and motion passes. Ms. Spalding, can you please read the recommendation for permits for use of buildings and grounds?
That the Board of School Directors approves the applications for permits for use of buildings and grounds as reflected in addendum number 8.1.
Second.
We have a second, Dr. Fetcher.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. The permit addendum continues to reflect typical requests for buildings and grounds for meetings and other school events and activities for this time of year.
Questions or comments from the board? Thank you again to our community members, our staff who work hard to create spaces for students to have a sense of belonging, whether it's a club or a play, which I'm so sorry I missed this past weekend, but I know they put on an amazing show as they usually do. Ms. Flanagan?
Ms. Frazier,
Aye.
Ms. Eisenhart,
Aye.
Ms. Spalding,
Aye.
Mr. Mohammed,
Aye.
Ms. Fazy,
Aye.
Ms. Hartman,
Aye.
Mrs. Brown,
Aye. Ayes have it, and motion passes. Ms. Spalding, can you please read the recommendation for awards of contracts?
That the Board of School Directors approves the awards of contracts as reflected in addendum number 9.1.
Second.
We have a second, Dr. Fetcher.
Thank you, Mrs. Brown. Tonight, for your consideration, we have 6 retroactive awards of contracts. They are for art, general, music, physical education, and science supplies, as well as electric generation services that will be from the period of July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2027.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? This is one of the budget items that when I read on Thursday, it made me smile. We're providing students with materials that they need for music, for art, for things that that matter, you know. So my vote is a yes. Ms. Flanagan?
Ms. Frazier,
Aye.
Ms. Eisenhart,
Aye.
Ms. Spalding,
Aye.
Mr. Mohammed,
Aye.
Ms. Fazy,
Aye.
Ms. Hartman,
Aye.
Mrs. Brown,
Aye. I have it and so moved. Mr. Mohammed, can you please read the recommendation for the confidential student matter?
That the Board of School Directors approve the confidential student matter as reflected in addendum number 10.1.
Second.
Thank you for being flexible with that. We have a second, Dr. Fetcher.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. The confidential student matter is regarding an educational service agreement. Keeping in mind the confidentiality of student matters, I can answer any questions that you may have.
Questions or comment from the board? Mrs. Flanagan?
Ms. Frazier?
Aye.
Ms. Eisenhart?
Aye.
Ms. Spalding?
Aye.
Mr. Mohammed?
Aye.
Ms. Feasy?
Aye.
Ms. Hartman?
Aye.
Mrs. Brown?
Aye, ayes have it, and so moved. Any other business to be appropriately brought up today from my fellow board members? Dr. Fetcher, any additional items to share this evening?
Yes, Ms. Brown, I provide the conference attendance and professional leaves for your information. I would like to bring your attention to Ms. Greta Garrick, our Career Pathways Liaison, and Mr. Joe Taliaferro, who will be presenting at the Standards Aligned Systems Conference on December 8th. The presentation will focus on graduating seniors through work-based learning pathways. Best practices will be shared in service learning and pathway programs that integrate work-based learning, industry credentials, and college credits to ensure learners are career and work ready.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? It is always a pleasure to see Abington staff leading the charge in things that we do really, really well with. So thank you and enjoy Hershey. If there's nothing else, we will go to agenda item number 13, which is comments from citizens. Comments from citizens are being conducted both in person and by phone. The phone number to participate in public comments is 267-715-3717 and is featured on the screen at this time. Please feel free to call in using either your landline or mobile phone. If you're within the room, there are mics to the left and to the right of you. Please be sure to state your name and address.
Okay, you're not going to believe this, but I too am a parent, an educator, and a math specialist. And I'm incredulous over what I got out of that reading thing. I think all of our teachers are reading experts, and we should be able to identify students that have a reading literacy problem in K through 5 and be able to do that and not have to measure at 6 through 10 to discover problems right there. That seems to me pretty evident, but maybe I'm wrong. Okay, I got to move back real quick. You put out a new thing through ICS where there's now a little section that says 4 choices for spending up to $500 million and how it's going to affect. It called homestead value. So I don't know what that homestead value term is. So we have a green tax bill, and on it has an assessment for your house. And then you have a millage rate that's applied to that. I don't believe that homestead value is that assessed value because it says $387,402. Now, I presented you all with my analysis of what's going to increase taxes $1,000 to $2,000 based on whether you borrow up to $500 million bucks. And I also provided you with the information that said, how did I come up with that? In other words, I assumed a 6% coupon and a 25-year payback, but there was none of that information provided. So I don't know how this compares with something that people can actually look at and say, this is my tax bill, this is what it means to me. So I don't know why that is or why any of you haven't asked that. Maybe you haven't even looked at it, but I've discussed it. And to get back, we got to compare apples with apples. People are going to look at that and they're going to get a bill. They need to know what's that. An average house in Ardsley is a pretty average house, or North Hills, or Roslyn, or wherever, Willow Grove, okay? We're not talking about people in Rydell for the average house, although they have need to learn the same information. So that's what we should be presenting to people. How did that number get generated and how honest is it? Where does that compare with what I presented with you? I bet I'm right, okay? Now, the other things as far as that's concerned, I wanted to get back. People don't understand that you guys are going to approve an opportunity for people to increase their taxes. You need to be able to explain. I don't think any of you know, but you might know. Where's that come from? Why do you have to do it? And people have to understand. They're not just voting on which of the four options they want. And if we look at what the government has done with this DOGE, which is the Department of Government Efficiency, we need to relook at our entire school district. So I'm recommending a halt to this whole process. If we're going to spend $500 million, we don't need to hire ICS to give us a propaganda campaign. We need to go, what are we going to do with that $500 million when we have kids in 6th through 10th grade who aren't reading proficient? A new middle school is not going to do anything for that.
Thank you so much for your time and for your
About an
voice.
extra minute.
Thank you so much for your time and your voice. Your time is up.
It's like a 20-minute meeting.
Please
so
do
far.
take your seat. But I did
You're not
make a note.
interested.
I did make a note of your questions. Thank you so much.
So will I get an answer?
Your time
You
is up.
noted my question. Will
Please-
I get an answer?
Please take your seat. Thank you so much.
Hi, Jen Pertel again, Glenside. I've been looking at some of the older meetings where you guys were discussing the plans for the new middle school. And my understanding is it's going to be, once the plan for one school, two school, new school, working with old schools, it's going to be presented to the voters as a ballot item. So it is not that you guys are going to decide to spend all this money. It is going to be the voters that decide on what plan they want to go forward with. And unlike a university that has an endowment for capital improvements, my understanding is public schools do not, because they are funded by our tax dollars that are collected every year. So to do a big capital improvement like that, it seems like it makes sense that you have to do the research, make the plan, estimate the amount that is going to be spent, and then put it to the taxpayers, which is what my understanding is that you guys are all doing. So, you know, and as far as efficiency and all that, everything can be improved, but the website, the transparency, the feedback, the Q&A opportunities, it seems like you are trying to be as thoughtful and as prepared as possible for all the variables that come into a project like that. So, thank you.
Thank you for your voice. If there are any speakers, any additional speakers in the room, there are mics to the left and to the right of you. Mr. Green, can you confirm that there are no callers on the line? Thank you so much, Dr. Fetcher.
I have no further comment.
Okay, I do have comments to address some of the things that I heard. I think it is incredibly important that taxpayers are presented with a calculator that will allow them to know how this affects them as individuals. And I know the board has mentioned, and we had our speaker say that a calculator was being developed. That calculator has been developed, is in its draft stage where it has been tested out, and it does align with the $39 to $91 per month for the average assessed home. So being able to take your tax bill and place your parcel ID number into a calculator is incredibly important, and it is part of the work that is being done. I hope that the district is able to provide that by Monday, but the community will be notified. So I definitely agree that that is an important aspect and is something that that is being done. If there's nothing else, we will have closing remarks from my fellow board members, starting with Ms. Frazier.
Yes, I'd like to thank our resident for her kind words in the spirit of Thanksgiving. And happy Thanksgiving to everyone here.
Indeed. Ms. Eisenhart?
Yeah, I just wanted to share some gratitude for all the parents in the district, the volunteers that make everything happen on a regular basis. They don't get a lot of recognition, and they do so much to create a community of strength and purpose and inclusivity for our students, activities, enrichment. So if we have any parents out there listening right now, you all deserve a deserved break as well this Thanksgiving, and just know that we're grateful for you, and happy Thanksgiving wishes to everyone else.
Ms. Spalding?
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody, with your family and friends.
Mr. Muhammad?
Happy Thanksgiving. I am particularly thankful for my lovely family, my beautiful wife. We just celebrated 10 years married. Thank you. My beautiful daughters, my amazing colleagues on the dais, everyone in Abington School District's administration, the teachers, the educators, the community members who support the Abington School District in so many different ways. I hope that we all enjoy football, family, food. I particularly enjoy cooking and breaking bread with my loved ones. Cooking is an act of love, and being able to share what you create with those you love or with anyone is a beautiful thing. However, I do ask that we reflect on the narratives that are being advanced in regards to holidays such as Thanksgiving, and to consider what narratives are not being advanced, what narratives are being forgotten, and being pushed out of the public's knowledge. And to remember the experience of Indigenous Americans on Thanksgiving as well as every day. Have a good night.
Thank you so much. Ms. Fazy?
I just want to also just express my gratitude to everyone here, everyone in the schools, everyone in our communities that keeps things going day by day for our kids in schools. Thank you to each one of you. And take good care, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you. Ms. Hartman?
I also want to thank everyone for all the efforts that we put forth for our kids and giving them the education and all the hard work the families do. I also want to congratulate all of the members of the Midsummer Night's Dream presentation. It was beautiful. Yeah. And the stage crew did an amazing job on the set. The set was absolutely breathtaking. So the amount of work that went into that performance and that the kids put into it, it was just amazing. So just want to congratulate everyone if they're listening. And yeah, so take care, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving.
Indeed. Dr. Fetcher?
Thank you, Ms. Brown. First, I would like to also congratulate the cast and crew of Midsummer Night's Dream. It was one of my favorite plays to read, but to see it performed and the level of performance from our students was quite impressive, as well as the set. So I wanted to just give them a little shout out. I really appreciated having the opportunity to view that play. And I'd like to say that I hope everyone has a happy Thanksgiving. Most importantly, during that time, to be able to spend time with those who you desire to spend time with, and in order to reconnect and pause and be thankful for the good things in our lives and those who care about us and love us as well. Thank you.
Excellent. Congrats again to the cast and crew. It pains me that I missed it this year. I will try my best not to do that next year. This holiday season is very special. It's a family time, but there are also some who are hurting, whether they lost loved ones or it's just not a good time for them. So just remember to be kind, to reach out, to tell people you love them, and to find something to be grateful for. Your heart will thank you for being grateful. Everyone have a good night. This meeting is adjourned.